Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the daily discussion for the 6th of October, 2014. Happy Monday to you all. If you have any ideas for topics, you can leave them in the comments below, or just use the links in the description to contact me. My name is Tuskeh, and today we shall be discussing a comment from Fabio Giacinto. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I do apologize if I did. A video of your opinion about leveling and heirlooms in World of Warcraft would be nice. Okay, let's have a discussion about leveling and heirlooms in World of Warcraft, because I've been doing a fair amount of that recently, and it's been pretty good. I've been enjoying it, but having leveled with and without heirlooms in the past, I think having an interesting conversation about it would be good. So I've always had a problem with the low-level leveling experience in World of Warcraft, because it doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion. It's not properly maintained, bugs take forever to get ironed out, because Blizzard are just focusing on the end game. They're focusing on all the new stuff, which is perfectly understandable. I just think that it's a little bit of a shame, a little bit lazy, I suppose, but, you know, there's nothing that can really be done about it at the moment, so we just gotta roll with it. But really, I think the leveling experience in World of Warcraft is very good. I mean, I think it's one of the best. Ever since they revamped the old vanilla quests with Cataclysm ones, the level 1 to 60 experience is really good, in my opinion. I think it's some of the best. You get to see interesting storylines, you get to see how the world is progressing, and you get to just see what makes the Horde and the Alliance what they are, going through the different zones and seeing their allies and their enemies, and there are some really interesting storylines to be done there. So I think the 1 to 60 experience in terms of questing is really good. In terms of dungeons, they're okay. They're not the best in the world. They're very, very, very easy, some of them. Once you start getting to level 50 and above, they can start getting a little bit of teeth, but anything under that is just complete bollocks. It's really easy, and heirlooms just make that even worse, in my opinion, but we'll get onto heirlooms in a little bit. We'll start with actually what the leveling experience is like. So, those are the dungeons. PvP, I have no idea. I have no idea how it is to level up through PvP because I don't PvP. So that's out the window in terms of discussions. So, it's just the dungeons and the questing experience for me. So, the questing experience from 1 to 60, really good, and the dungeons, not that bad. Burning Crusade, I think the quests are a little bit worse than in Cataclysm. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense because they're much closer to vanilla than they are to Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria. Really, the Burning Crusade quests are the oldest in the game, so you can kind of understand that. I don't mind them, they're not that bad. Some of them are a little bit annoying. It's just more time-consuming than anything else. The 60 to 70 kind of leveling experience isn't that bad. You get to see quite a few of the zones. I think on my mage, most recently, without heirlooms, I did Hellfire Peninsula, and then I skipped Zangarmarsh. I went to Terakar Forest instead, and then I went to Blade's Edge, and then I finished in Shadowmoon Valley. I believe I finished in Shadowmoon Valley. Either that or I just got to level 68 in Blade's Edge. So really, I didn't think it was all that bad. Again, Burning Crusade dungeons, much like the vanilla ones, are quite easy. Really, with all the different balancing that's been going on, Burning Crusade dungeons are just piss easy at the moment. They really are. There aren't really that many mechanics, and it's just not that hard. Really, the only mechanics that are out there are annoyances more than anything else, so I didn't really feel like those were really a big deal. So again, the dungeons in Burning Crusade, a bit lackluster in my opinion. They're not all that interesting. The mechanics aren't that interesting. I mean, the only real advantage that Burning Crusade dungeons have is the art style, because I do like Burning Crusade's art style, and the dungeons look nice. And they're nice to run once, but other than that, I don't enjoy leveling through Burning Crusade dungeons that much. I'd much prefer to quest. The quests, in terms of story, aren't amazing, but they're not that bad. And you get to wander around Outland, which is a very pretty looking place. So there's that. So, Burning Crusade, I'd much prefer to quest than dungeon, but having introduced the extra dungeon quests at the beginning of every single instance, that makes it much easier to level through dungeons in the Burning Crusade, so there is that. And then on to Wrath of the Lich King. Now, this is where I kind of hit a stumbling point in terms of quests. I don't know why, but Wrath of the Lich King quests bore me really badly. Maybe it's because I did them so much. Wrath of the Lich King is when I really started getting into World of Warcraft, and I did those quests a lot. I don't know if that colors my interpretation of them now, but I just don't find them that interesting. I really don't. I mean, I know all the stories inside and out, and I think that it takes way too long. It really does. It's just such a massive, great big time sink. And in my opinion, the dungeons aren't any better. The dungeons aren't all that well spaced out, in my opinion. You have to do a lot of the same ones repeatedly. Like, if you want to level entirely through dungeons, in Wrath of the Lich King, you're going to have to do every dungeon at least 6 or 7 times, probably more. And if you don't have heirlooms, it's going to be even worse. So I would really not recommend leveling through dungeons in Wrath of the Lich King. I mean, do them for the quests once, sure, but just spamming random dungeons is not fun, in my opinion, in terms of Wrath of the Lich King. Again, the mechanics are piss easy. There's barely anything to worry about. As long as your team is mildly competent, then you're completely fine. You can just kind of roll your way through it without too many problems. Really, the only problem is if the tank mass pulls, and that's it. So I wouldn't worry too much about the difficulty. But again, the quests are just so boring, in my opinion. The quests are just cut and paste generic. There's nothing really exciting about them, and I just didn't enjoy it. I do not enjoy leveling throughout Wrath of the Lich King. I often slow down or stop at that point because I just can't stand it, and it takes quite a lot of willpower to get through it. Thankfully, I have got through it on my mage, which is nice. So that's my opinion of the Wrath of the Lich King leveling. Moving on to Cataclysm. Now, I love the questing in Cataclysm because it's just like the 1 to 60 questing experience, except they actually throw in some difficult mechanics every now and then. There are some things that can occasionally kill you. And I like that. You have to actually think on your feet every now and then. It kind of gets you thinking about what the end game is going to be like, which I love. I really like that. That's good. And I find the storyline interesting. I find the different locales you go to very interesting. And yeah, I just really like the questing in Cataclysm. I love questing from 80 to 85. And I even love Vashir. I know that's something that not a lot of people do, but I love Vashir. I think it's a great zone, and it's a pretty good attempt at an underwater zone, in my opinion. I really like it. So yeah, I love the questing in Cataclysm. The dungeons are okay. They're quite difficult. Actually, there's a bit of a spike in between Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm, which is why I think there's an item level requirement to get into them. And I think that some mechanics there can kill you. Like, for instance, the second boss of the Throne of Tides, the faceless dude, I forget his name because I probably can't pronounce it, but he does the Void Smash that will just one-shot the tank if he doesn't move. And that can be quite the problem. So there are a few mechanics that you actually have to think about. So there's that, and I like that fact. Although there is one major downside to Cataclysm dungeons, and that is their level. And by that, I mean people between level 80 and 85 can pick up Mists of Pandaria items that are about 7 times better than any other item you can get at that level. And just, if you get decked out in them, like I've seen a few hunters, for instance, do that, then they can just steamroll their way through everything. They don't need a tank, they don't need a healer, because they can just 2 or 3 shot everything, and they can just mince bosses apart, which I hate. I hate that so much. I really do. It's so annoying. So there is that. That is quite a big downside. Although that's not actually got to do with the Cataclysm dungeons themselves. That's more just the situation at the moment, and that's what the leveling experience in the Cataclysm dungeons is like. They can be quite easy until you make a small mistake, and then you just kind of things get thrown out of the window. But, you know, they're not so bad. So I'd much prefer to quest than dungeon through Cataclysm. And then moving on to Mists of Pandaria, I think that the questing experience is pretty good. I'd say it's a little bit better than Cataclysm, making it my favorite questing experience so far. Although I have done it several times, so that has kind of lowered my want to do it again, and I'm about to do that on my mage now, so not looking forward to doing that, but, you know, I'm just going to slog through it, so it shouldn't be that bad. I've also got to do it on my paladin as well. He's level 88, I believe, so I've just got to get them to 90 before Warlord, so that's not too much of a big deal. Just got to do the quests. And the quests are interesting, the storylines are good, Pandaria looks beautiful, and I like it. I love the whole atmosphere behind it, and I just think it's a good questing experience. The dungeons, however, can go and die in a fire, in my opinion, because the Mr. Pandaria dungeons are piss easy. They really are. They're much easier than the Cataclysm ones, in my opinion, and they're just boring. They're boring. The mechanics aren't all that interesting. Well, they're interesting in kind of idea. Like, they're interesting ideas, I think. I think the Mr. Pandaria dungeons have really good ideas behind them, but they're not executed that well. There aren't really many mechanics that can really challenge you all that much, especially when you're leveling up and you have someone who's a little bit overgeared, and you know, if a level 90 comes in to help someone who's leveling, then they can solo the whole bloody place by themselves. So that is also a problem with the leveling experience. So I think Mr. Pandaria dungeons can go and die in a fire, and the quests are amazing. So I'd much prefer to quest from 85 to 90 than do the dungeons. I will probably do the dungeons once just for the quests, but that's it. So there is that. And Warlords of Draenor leveling? No friggin' clue. Hopefully it'll be good fun and the quests will be very interesting. They will be for the first time round, that's for sure. So there is that. Looking forward to Warlords of Draenor questing. And that's about it in terms of the actual leveling experiences. But we have to talk about heirlooms quickly, because heirlooms are, in my opinion, bad. The whole idea behind heirlooms is great, though. I really love the fact that you can just get a whole bunch of extra XP, and you can just really shoot up through the levels, especially 1 to 60. 1 to 60 can go really damn fast with heirlooms, and it makes the whole experience so much easier, which is great for players who know what they're doing, and great for players that can just do the quests or do the dungeons and just go through it. They're not good for people who get one character to level 90 then try a different class. I think that they're really bad because they, first of all, the stats, they're my main problem. They just blow your stats up just to insane amounts, to the point where if you're in full heirlooms and you're in a dungeon, you can probably solo it, and that really sucks, and it really takes away from everyone else in the group, because Blizzard took time to put these instances together, and heirlooms completely wreck them. You don't get to see mechanics because enemies die too fast, no one's health moves, so you don't get experience as a healer, you just go in and you two-shot everything as a tank, which doesn't really help you for getting ready to tank at the end game, and as a DPSer, you can just aggro everything and out DPS set, which won't work at the end game. Well, it will in Mists of Pandaria, but that will probably change come Warlords of Draenor, especially at the beginning of an expansion. So I think that in that regard, Heirlooms can really suck. They can also really suck because of the extra XP they give you. It might incentivize you to stop doing quests in a particular zone and not see the story through to the end, which is not good in my opinion. I think that going through and seeing the different stories is a really great way of getting into the whole World of Warcraft story and making the questing so much easier and more enjoyable, especially if you haven't done them before, because you can go through and not finish any zone and still get to level 60 and then level 70 and then 80, 85 and then 90. Maybe less so with Mists of Pandaria, but you can still basically do that with every zone, even without Heirlooms. So with Heirlooms, it becomes even worse. So I think that in that regard, Heirlooms can suck, and they suck because they massively inflate your stats and they make the game way too easy. And I think that that can really suck. I mean, sure, it's fun to be able to two-shot or one-shot things as you level up, but that just gets boring after a while, and it makes the class less fun at the maximum level because you no longer do that. And I think that once you hit the maximum level, the Heirlooms become useless, and you no longer one or two-shot anything, and it can make you feel less powerful than when you were leveling up, which is not how the game should feel. And in that regard, I think that they are just bad, which is why I don't like leveling up with Heirlooms. I didn't level up my mage with Heirlooms, I didn't level up my druid with Heirlooms, although I got him to level 72 and then boosted him for the WoW Live series. And I leveled the warrior with Heirlooms, but that's because I didn't like the warrior very much, unfortunately. I just kind of forced my way through it. I ended up just not liking the warrior. I got him to level 69, 70, and then just kind of dropped him. Like I said, Wrath of the Lich King quests kind of lower my want to play the game anyway, so the warrior just wasn't helping that at all. I mean, the paladin, I didn't level with Heirlooms. No, the paladin I did level with Heirlooms. I leveled him as a tank with Heirlooms, but once I got to Cataclysm, I started gearing him out because I've never done 1 to 85 Heirlooms. I just haven't got to that point yet. But I wouldn't have enjoyed it with Heirlooms. I think that one of the major parts of Heirlooms is it takes away gearing for so much of the leveling experience. Like, there's so many times where I've been leveling with Heirlooms where I say, oh, look at this cool robe that dropped, or this cool piece of armor, or this weapon. It would be really good for me and really exciting. Oh, but I have Heirlooms. I get to keep the same old piece of gear that overinflates the stats by 3 or 4 times what that item would have given me. And that's not fun. I think that takes away from a massive part of the game. But, of course, there is always the upside. You level faster, and that will always trump everything else for players. It will just be like, oh, I have to level with Heirlooms because they go faster. And that sucks, in my opinion. I think it's just terrible. I think that you miss so much by having Heirlooms. You don't get to see so many interesting stories. You don't get to finish the zones. You don't get to see what it's like to play your class because you just annihilate everything with a single spell, and that's not fun. I mean, it might be for a while because you seem overpowered, but once you get to the maximum level, you will seem like you've reduced in power and you will enjoy it a whole lot less. Not to mention that, you know, if you level entirely through dungeons with Heirlooms, 1, it's boring as all hell in my opinion, but 2, if you level with Heirlooms and other people have Heirlooms, if you're a healer, you won't need to heal anything, barely, and if you're a tank, you won't take any damage and you'll just two-shot everything. And then when you get to Warlords of Draenor, that will all change and you'll feel like shit because you don't get to be that way anymore. So really, I suggest leveling without Heirlooms. I think it's much more fun. I think it gives you a much better representation of what the class will play like because you're not two-shotting everything. You can still kill things pretty damn fast. I mean, on my mage, I was able to AoE kill things nice and easy. I just had to use my brain. And that's what Heirlooms do, in my opinion. You don't have to use your brain. You don't have to think as much while you're leveling with Heirlooms. And I really don't like that fact. I think it really sucks. So those are my opinions on Heirlooms. Yeah, a little bit ranty there. I apologize for that, but, you know, that's just how it is. I think that they really take away from the experience, and I don't want to level with them anymore. So that's it for today's daily discussion. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, though. At the end of this video, I think we're going to include a new thing in this show. I think we'll have a nice piece of music from World of Warcraft at the end of every one of these daily discussions. Just a random piece of World of Warcraft music that I think is cool. So hopefully you'll enjoy that, and let me know what you think down below in the comments, or you can just use the links in the description to contact me. So today's piece of music will be called Vashir Naga Throne, otherwise known as the Throne of the Tides Instance Music. It's really dark and evil, and I really think it captures the essence of what the Naga are. Twisted and deprived creatures willing to do anything, even mingle with the old gods and their elemental servants, to gain power. So think wandering through the abyssal halls surrounded by dark water, with Naga peering out at you ready to strike at any moment while you listen to this particular piece of music. So thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck with your gaming endeavors.